Hello, and welcome to another episode on the Everyday Joy podcast. Before we dive into the podcast, if you are new, a couple of things I just want to say to you. Number one, welcome. Thank you so much for choosing to be a part of this podcast. Each episode ranges between 10 and 15 minutes. Sometimes we go for a bit longer, but it's always good stuff. Now, every episode has the same 3 questions. So if you like, you can follow along and answer these questions yourself before you listen to the episode. Then you can listen into the episode and get more out of it. Here are the 3 questions. Number 1, what is your first impression of this verse? Number 2, what does this verse tell you about who God is or what matters to him? And lastly, how has this verse come alive in your everyday life? These are 3 questions that you can find in some way, shape or form in every episode. And that means you can expect some great conversation with practical points as well as stories that I know you will resonate with. Right now though, let's get into today's Bible verse.
Don't compare yourself with others. Just look at your own work to see if you have done enough to be proud of. You must each accept the responsibilities that are yours. That's from Galatians chapter 6, verse 4-5, ERV version.
I have got Jen here in studio wrapping up the week.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, some amazing conversations.
It's been great.
I kind of feel like all these conversations are just ideal for the woman who's under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, guys, as well, if you're listening, you are going to get a lot out of this either way.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that a lot of the topics, especially this week around comparison, work-life balance, mum guilt, decluttering, all those sorts of things, I think they just kind of get under the skin of women a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think guys are just, it's not, to be a guy, honestly, sometimes I'm just like, it just would be the dream sometimes. Such an easy life. Although I know that's not true. But grass is always greener on the other side. Wow, I am off to a great start today.
I love it. That's okay. Keep it coming.
Well, let's go back to this verse. Galatians chapter 6, verses 4-5. Don't compare yourself with others.
Mm-hmm.
Just look at your own work to see if you have done anything to be proud of. You must each accept the responsibilities that are yours.
Mm-hmm.
My first impression of this is that it is really hard for me to not compare myself with others. It's really, really, really hard. And I think when you do grow up in particular cultures, I think it's, I wouldn't even say it's a culture thing. I think there's been a generational shift where the younger generation kids these days don't compare themselves verbally, at least to others. But I think a lot of us grew up in households where we might have been compared to siblings, might have been compared to peers, might have been compared to cousins who are super highly academic and look great and just are the golden child of the family. Anyway, not speaking from experience. But I think we if we grow up in that environment, it's something that we carry into our lives, and it's very hard to shake unless we are intentional about it. So that's my first impression. What about you?
I struggle as well. I don't know, like you say, if it's culture. I think it's a lot to do with just growing up. Unintentionally, you compare yourself with someone's grades. You compare yourself what they're eating, and I always come down to the fact that comparison is a thief of joy. It takes away your joy to live in each moment, to love yourself, to love what you're doing. Comparing just causes more harm than good.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. And I think that's what this tells me about God, is that he knows that we need to hear this, and he knows that we will naturally look to the left and to the right, but we've got to focus our eyes on him. And this actually ties in really well with yesterday's episode where we talked about mum guilt and comparing yourself to other mums, and maybe just generally comparing yourself to the way other people are doing the same thing you're doing. So do check out yesterday's episode. I think it's a really good lead in to today's one. But Jen, how has this verse come alive in your world?
Yep. So in VCE, I did dance as a subject, and I loved it. I love moving. I love expressing through my dance. I wasn't a very talkative person, so at least I knew I can show it in my body language. And I had a very close friend who did dance with me, and she was a professional dancer. She did ballet, tap, jazz. Like, they're the top 3 dance moves, dance styles.
Yeah.
And so I did a couple dance classes every now and then, but I just, I was dancing in my bedroom most of the time. Not that professional, but still. So during my first year of my subject dance, I unintentionally compared myself to my friend. She was great at everything. The way that she moved her arms, how her ballet structure just helped her carry herself. While I was there, just a little bit clunky, but I was still having a good time. I compared the way we danced. I compared the way we wrote our papers. I compared the way we participated in class. Every time she went to the front, I tried going to the front. And I was just never able to match her. I was never able to be like her. And so towards the end of that year, I was getting C's through all my assessments and she got A's. And so I was so down. I felt like I failed. I felt like I shouldn't be doing dance because, I wasn't good at it. And for some reason, over that summer break, something clicked in me. Something went, you know what? Let's change this around. Let's focus on myself. I stopped comparing myself to her. And towards the end of the next year, I was so incredibly happy with my work. I was incredibly happy with my performances. I ended up getting an A average.
You know what I think the difference was, Jen?
What?
I think it was the joy factor.
Yes.
Because you stopped comparing and you restored your joy, and that would have been expressed through your writing, through your dance.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, what a story, right?
So, okay, how did you do that exactly? I mean, because when you compare yourself to someone, it becomes a really addictive habit, and it's hard to break any addiction. So how did you stop comparing yourself to her?
Yep. I moved a class. That was the big thing after the summer break. I moved out of her class into another class.
Great.
And this other class, they had a bit more of my style, the hip hop style, where I can, express in that way. So I removed myself from that situation. And then I focused on myself. I was like, no, I'm not going to focus on anyone here. I'm just going to do my work. I'm going to literally look at myself in the mirror, smile, and just move and just do what I feel in my body, what God has put into my soul.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how it's the things that we love the most in life that the enemy tries to attack and often attacks through comparison?
Yeah.
So maybe you're listening right now and you just love dancing. Yeah. But what's stolen your joy around dancing is trying to dance as good as the other dancers. Maybe for you, you just love being a mum. You've prayed to be a mum. But now the joy of being a mum it's being eaten away by mum guilt we were talking about yesterday and how other mums are doing it. Look, maybe for you, it's something to do with your body and your perception of yourself is not where it was when you were younger. Because I think when we were all kids and, under 5, we were like, yes, I love my body and I'll wear what I want and I'll do what I want. And then somewhere along the line, you just get held down. I think a lot of that comes from comparison. You shut down and you stop seeing yourself the way your parents or other people see you. And maybe for you, that's what's stolen your joy. You're not wearing the clothes you want to wear because you don't look like her in that dress. Maybe you're not going out to the beach because you don't look like him at the beach, all those sorts of things. And I think today it's so good because this whole podcast title is Everyday Joy. Yeah. If you want a shortcut, surefire, and quick way to restore your joy, stop comparing yourself.
100%. God doesn't want us to be distracted by others. He wants to focus on ourselves, and he knows it's easy for us to compare, especially with social media now. Focus on yourself. God made you so incredibly unique and so incredibly beautiful. Let's shine in his name.
As we come to the end of today's episode, I want to focus on that second question that we often ask on the podcast. It's the question, what does this tell me about who God is or what matters to him? And I think it's important because It reminds us that the Bible is not just about telling us what to do, it's ultimately about revealing God to us. And sure, it's amazing that we've got this incredible book that is a guide, but it's also a mirror. It shows us God's reflection. It shows us what He's like. It shows us who He is. And so maybe for you, the application point is to focus not really on how you can apply this verse, but what this teaches you about what matters to God. And there's a few different ways to ask that question. The first one is, well, what does this particular verse show you about who God is? Or what does this tell you about what God doesn't like? Or what does this tell you about what character traits God values? There's so many ways to slice this open, but it's an important question to ask. Because at the end of the day, it's not meology, it's theology. It's not about me, it's about God. So as we come to the end of today's episode, so that's something that you can practice and implement just as you go out and about, going about your day. A really powerful question that could change the course of a lot of things for you. And again, if you want to get further application, head to the Everyday Joy Facebook community group, which is in the description below.